On the 14th of June, I was asleep in bed and received a telephone call from a circuit steward who told me that Grenfell Tower was on fire. And so I got up, threw on my clerical shirt, came out to the local area. The church was cordoned off at the time. We couldn't get near it. The emergency personnel were afraid that the tower might collapse, I think. And so we spent the next few hours going around the local streets, and I spent some considerable time in one of the relief centres talking to some of the survivors who were, as you can imagine, incredibly shocked, angry, distressed. I remember one particular man shouting over and over again, we warned them about this. By the first few days, the vigil had started, and a memorial with lots and lots of flowers outside, which also meant that people would stand outside the church as a place to talk and reflect, perhaps to pray. And I spent more of my time in the first few days outside the building, almost all my hours, in fact, outside the building rather than inside it. And there, countless conversations with people about all manner of things, but people wanting to talk and to be listened to. I think that was one of the things the church was offering, just people being able to be listened to, and a chance for just simply to offload. When people ask me, how can you believe in a God when things like this happen, I try not to give an answer, not a direct answer anyway. And on the few occasions where I was asked that question, I think I felt that any answer would be trite, and I'm not sure that that was actually the question that was being asked. Sometimes what's behind the question is a profound sense of anger and hurt, and to say, oh, I've got a nice slick answer to something that feels so profound, it's almost pastorally damaging, I feel. And what I wanted to do was listen to the hurt and acknowledge that before offering anything else. So first of all, I would not pretend that there is an off-the-shelf answer of any kind. I think secondly, wanting to suggest that it wasn't about answers at all. That these, without wishing to say, I can't offer anything, but that Christian faith is not about finding answers to all the questions we have, but about perhaps a particular way of thinking and feeling and acting, which is about trusting in a God. And although I wouldn't want to get down that, and didn't in such long sentences at the time, I think I would have had a chance, wanted to talk more about God in the midst of suffering, but not as an answer, simply a way of saying that actually God calls us to be in such places amidst all that is horrible. It's made me far more aware of two things. Firstly is the way that institutions can damage communities and people, sometimes with terrible consequences, such as the Grenfell Tower fire. The other is the way in which people of the most diverse of backgrounds can work together and work very well. I've seen that with my own eyes time and time again in the first few days here, where not only did people simply pitch in and work, they worked together. Many people have asked me about my faith and as a result of the fire, and expecting a yes-no answer. You either have faith or you don't have it, or it's down to 80% or 90% or something like that. I really don't see it in such terms. Faith for me is about values and attitudes and priorities and lifestyle and the way I see the world, and certainly my perspectives have been significantly affected by what I have seen and witnessed and heard and been part of in a number of ways. I don't think you could be unaffected by the huge sense of collective grief and trauma in a community, and you realise the whole human cost of what's happened in the tower. You can't, as I have done, go up all 23 floors of the Grenfell Tower following the fire and not be profoundly affected by what you see and by talking to the recovery crews. I think that the sense of loss is enormous, but also it's also a sense of what's important. So suddenly lots of things seem very, very trivial. That's I think a very common reaction to a very intense and stressful period. But even now, many things continue to remain trivial in the light of the enormity of what has happened. And perhaps that helps to reset some of the benchmarks of my priorities and my spirituality as to what is important in my life or not. You leave an area like this and you go back to a different world where there is shopping and where there is entertainment. And for the first few weeks I screamed at it and found it immensely difficult to cope with that, as many did. I think that's a normal reaction. But even now, the materialism of today's world is, I think I do have a different view on, as indeed do many people from the Grenfell Tower. Some people have come to me and said, Rev, this is not the first time we've lost everything. They've come here as people with nothing, some as refugees from other countries, fleeing things, and they've lost things yet again. And they have remarkable humility and resilience at being able to cope despite the difficulties still months on from the Grenfell Tower fire. And I think that profoundly affects me as I listen to them and I learn from them about what's really important in life and in faith. And I think it's perhaps directed me more again to the very simple and radical teachings of Jesus and the lifestyle that he invited people to follow.